Did you have any questions about total or selective incorporation?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm gonna get stuff.
Total incorporation, all Bill of Rights apply to the states, 1 through 10. Selective incorporation, just a selected few apply to states, not all of them. And that was decided in which case? Very good, yes, Papa versus Connecticut.
I was wondering like why the Seventh Amendment wasn't used like at a state level, or the second one, like the right to bear arms.
Because the right to bear arms is more like a national thing. Pretty much in every state you have the right to bear arms. It is just that states are able to pass laws that, like, you have to have a permit, like you have to have so on and so forth. So they didn't really need like the amendment to really specifically go for states. And the Seventh Amendment, mostly because it's already applied with the Sixth Amendment, the jury trial, and then the $20 minimum. So, that's the difference. Yes? Hopefully, yes, children, because it is definitely going to be appearing on the class. Please make sure that you understand the 14th Amendment. Especially section 1 of the 14th Amendment. What 3 clauses are in the 14th Amendment?
The due process, the equal and protections, and
Privileges and immunities. There you go. What case tried to use privileges and immunities, but the courts struck it down? Yes. Right. So, now we're gonna be talking about the power of the court. So this is something called judicial review. Alright, so this is a key feature in the federal judicial power. This is really the most active power that they have, because overall, the courts are quite passive. Can they actually do anything? Can they send people out to make sure that their decisions are enforced? No. Do they have their own personal little army?
No.
No. They really have to rely on both Congress and the president to be able to actually have their decisions matter. So this particular power is a very big one that they have, and it is one that they have used since its inception. So, the Constitution did not make this an active power of the courts, and they did, not like they did this out of pettiness or anything, it's more like the founding fathers just kind of believed it to be inherent in the courts. They were like, obviously they're gonna have this power, so we don't have to write it in. But much like with any other thing that was vague and not written in the Constitution, people said, well, it's not written there, so it doesn't really apply. So the courts had to actually say it and make it official to have that power actually apply to them. Because you have to write everything out. Everything out. It's like a freaking contract. Everything has to be written out. Or else people find loopholes. You don't do what you're supposed to, what they're supposed to do. Okay, so the court that did this, and you have, hopefully you remember this guy, or this court, Chief Justice John Marshall. What case did he preside over?
First one.
Yes, which was that one? Starts with a B.
Baltimore.
It is Baltimore. What was the dude's name? Yes, Barron versus Baltimore. Very good. So Chief Justice John Marshall is one of like the iconic Chief Justices. And this particular court case, which gave the court's judicial review, also happened to be in his court. And essentially what this power does is that it allows the courts to strike down laws made by both the federal and the state governments if they were deemed unconstitutional. Now again, the founding fathers didn't write this in because they're like, yeah, no, right? Like that is a power. That's basically the whole point of the courts, to make sure that, you know, everyone is following the Constitution. But a lot of people didn't really see that in the courts. So then Marshall made it a point to point this out and to write it down and for it to be a part of the decision. So now it becomes court law. and it becomes constitutional for the courts to be able to do this. So the reason why it was so important was because it provides necessary oversight. What's oversight? Yeah, to look it over, right, to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And the government tends to do things, unfortunately, sometimes, or all the time, tends to do things that are unconstitutional, or tends to pass laws that are unconstitutional. So judicial review is there to make sure that the government itself, the national government itself, is still following the Constitution. Because unfortunately, the people can't really stop Congress from doing stuff, nor can they stop the president from doing stuff until we vote them out or, something happens. The courts, however, do have this power because of Marshall. And so they were able to use this power, sometimes for bad, of course, because, people, but sometimes for good. Also, it is a powerful counter-majoritarian force. What do you think that means?
Goes against the majority.
Yes, very good. Especially if both Congress and the president are teamed up together, the courts are kind of able to withstand the pressure from them. Because once a justice is in the Supreme Court, can anything take him out? Or take them out? Not like take them out, but, have them not be a Supreme Court justice. Can they get fired? Not really, right? Unless, of course, they have done something like treason or something. Only that would actually have someone get kicked out of the Supreme Court. So they have this kind of defense against these very, very powerful entities in our national government, and they use this power to be able to defend themselves from them. So judicial review, very, very important. So these are kind of like the 3 rules, I guess, of judicial review. First up, the Constitution is the supreme law of the country. That is also what clause in our Constitution?
Supremacy.
Very good, yes, the supremacy clause. So because the Constitution is the supreme law of the country, the Supreme Court has to obey this law. The Supreme Court has the ultimate authority in ruling on constitutional matters. What does that mean, if they have the ultimate authority? Huh? Yes, they are the final say, right? That is where the bus stops. No further, right? This is the last group, I suppose, that has the power to actually be able to change a law if it is not constitutional. And number 3, probably the most important, the judiciary must. Notice it's not can or should, it is must. Must rule against any law that conflicts with the Constitution. That is their entire purpose. That is their one major duty, right? Anything that goes against the Constitution, they must rule against. Now, have they done this in the history of the United States?
Probably.
Have they always followed this?
No.
No, they have not. But, this is if it was a perfect world. changed everything for the Supreme Court. It is Marbury versus Madison, and yes, it is that Madison. Now, for this, I do have pictures. I don't really have words, so you're gonna have to just kind of explain it as I explain it in your notebooks, because you do have to remember this case. Alright, this happened in the 1800s election. There were two parties, the Federalists,
And the anti.
no,
Oh.
and the Democratic Republican Party. This is before the Democrats and the Republicans were against each other, they were one. So, on the Federalist side, we have John Adams. He lost. He lost against the third president of the United States. Who was that? He wrote the Declaration of Independence.
Thomas Jefferson.
Very good, yes, he lost against Jefferson, who was a Democratic Republican. Now, John Adams was a very sneaky guy, because he did not like, well, the Federalist Party did not like the Democratic Republican Party, and vice versa, they just freaking hated each other.
Liz, what side is he on?
Federalist, Democratic Republican. Okay? So, before he left, because he knew he was gonna lose, John Adams filled all of the positions in DC with his people. And the Senate nominated them like this, like they confirmed them like crazy, okay? And Jefferson, when he found out, was really, really pissed off about that. Because he was like, dude, you lost, that's it. One particular person that John Adams also nominated was this guy, Marbury. Now, Marbury was going to be a justice of the peace in DC, which is essentially the judge. Now, Adams had signed his commission, they had notarized it, everything was official. They actually gave it to someone, and that person had a whole bunch of papers that he had to like put in, and he happened to forget his paper. So his was not turned in before Jefferson took power. So Marbury was like, yo, I'm supposed to have a job, and now I don't have a job. Because when Jefferson found out that Marbury was gonna get that job, he was like, screw that guy, hell no. So he made his secretary, Madison, not turn in the paper. He's like, don't even try to confirm it. And Madison was like, okay, I won't confirm it. So Marbury got pissed because he had gotten all of this ready. It was all ready. All they had to do was to file the paper. But Madison did not do that. So Marbury sued Madison.
What was the position he was?
He was the Justice of the Peace of DC. Marbury sued Madison, right? And in his suit, he said, I deserve this position. Madison should get some sort of reprimand, and I should get my position, right? I want the court to force Madison to do his duty. So this was called a writ of mandamus, which is very like Spanish, right? Mandar, to force someone to do something. So the writ of mandamus. So he wanted the Supreme Court to essentially give him his job. So that was called the whole beef, right? And Madison was like, this is stupid. And when he sued him, Madison didn't even show up to court. He's like, what are you gonna do? You can't do anything to me. This is a stupid case. When it got to the desk of the Chief Justice at the time, Marshall looked over the case, he looked over everything, and he's like, Marbury, they actually did kind of do you dirty. This paper is official, you should have the job, and Madison should have been here. Unfortunately, when he looked at the writ of mandamus, he said, this is very surprising, right? Because a lot of people want to give themselves more power, but he said, Congress cannot do that to the courts. They cannot give us this power. So, the writ gave the courts the power to force people to do something.
What?
Congress gave them that power. So John Marshall said, this power is not written in the Constitution.
Written?
Written.
Is that what that means?
Writ is more like an order.
Miss, I don't know what's going on.
Okay,
Like from the beginning though, like I don't know what's going on.
from the beginning.
Yeah, tell me that.
Miss, like John Adams, Jefferson didn't like each other.
Uh-huh.
Before Jefferson was, or before John Adams got kicked out, he put all his type of people in office, and one of them was that guy, and that guy was the Justice of Peace.
Well,
Wait, he
he
was?
was
He was going to be.
Yes,
He was going to be.
but then they didn't send in his paper.
Who didn't send him the paper?
Ironically enough, his brother,
Who was brother?
Marshall is.
Marshall's brother.
So they like Marbury and Marshall. They like each other or no?
Don't watch this, they're friends. So Marshall was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, okay? Marbury was supposed to get that position. Marshall's brother forgot his paper, unfortunately. I think he had like some beef with us. So his paper never got filled. When Jefferson took power, he saw that he needed that position, and he was like, hell no, screw that guy.
Yeah.
And he told Madison, don't file it.
Jefferson told Madison, don't file it. Don't file
Yes.
what? His paper?
Yes,
What is Madison doing though?
he's the Secretary of State of Jefferson.
Oh,
So he is in his administration. They're friends,
yeah.
right? Okay. So Marbury is now mad because these two didn't give him the job. So he sues him, okay? And he tells the courts, you need to order with this, Madison, to give me my job.
He tells the court.
Him. To give him his job. The court says, dude, it is kind of messed up because you do have the paperwork, and Madison should have taken this seriously. But this order, that's not constitutional. Unfortunately for you. Because, and I know I erased it, the writ of mandamus, right? Congress passed this law, the judiciary power of 1789. This was in it.
Right.
This essentially has the courts get the power to force people to do stuff. So if someone is not doing their job, they can get sued, and the courts could be like, do your job, and they do their job, okay? So Marshall, he looked at this, and he said, that is not part of the Constitution. The Constitution gave us two jobs. Well, two things that we can get our cases from, appeal, or like ambassadors, foreign officials, blah, blah, blah. This is neither an appeal, nor is that dude an ambassador. So you're giving us an extra power the Constitution didn't give us. And he said Congress cannot do that. So the
But
power
that thing was already in place when he said no?
yes. So other courts have already been doing this. But then he
But-
said,
Oh, okay.
so he said that this part was unconstitutional.
That thing or what it applied to?
This,
So the whole thing?
Yeah.
The whole law?
not this, because this kind of made the federal courts, like it organized the federal courts. But by organizing the federal courts, the writ of mandamus was just like, ooh, let's give them this power too. So Congress is adding power to the Supreme Court that originally they did not have. So when Marshall saw that, he said, you can't use that unfortunately, because that's unconstitutional. Yeah,
So Marshall favored Marbury, but he couldn't do anything about it because what they were arguing for was not constitutional.
exactly. He limited the power of the Supreme Court.
So what's the writ?
The writ is an order, which gives, it should have, right? It essentially forces people to do their duty. So if Marbury had won, which he didn't, and he never got his job to go to people. If Marbury had won, Madison would have been forced by the Supreme Court to file his paper. But because Marshall said that this is unconstitutional, they couldn't force Madison to do anything, so they never filed the paper. So Marbury,
Okay, so how did the order like get passed if Marshall decided that it wasn't
no,
constitutional?
he, in his court case, put in the order. He was essentially saying, use this power to make him do his job.
He made it up.
No.
What?
It was here,
Yeah.
right?
Wait, what year was this? Oh, 1800s. Okay, and then this was like 10 years ago. Probably.
Yeah,
Okay, so this had already been, it was already a thing for like 10 years.
yeah.
Okay. How was it a thing then?
Because they passed it, and the court at that time, because Marshall had just become Chief Justice.
Oh.
The court at that time didn't see anything wrong with it. Cause they're like, hey, an
Okay.
extra power, you know, why not? But then Marshall saw this and he was like, ooh, can't do that. Can't do that, because that's an extra power that the Constitution did not give us. And we're supposed to uphold the Constitution, so that's unconstitutional.
That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
So he just interpreted it differently? Or not interpreted, but like, what was
He
it
just
like?
had a very narrow understanding of what the Constitution gave the Supreme Court. And he was like, this is not a power that the Supreme Court has, and Congress cannot give us extra power. Congress does not have that power. Right, the only thing that gives us any type of power is the Constitution.
Makes sense.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I get
This
it.
is a very important case, Jim. You have to know this case. So if I ask someone randomly right now to explain it to me, they're gonna be able to explain it to me.
Yeah.
Let's ask somebody right now.
Don't say no. Alright, let's go with,
Eddie, what are you doing down?
he's basically almost going on yours. Alright, the other edge.
Eduardo.
So basically, when Jefferson got elected, John Adams selected people to be on the position, and I helped him. And one of those people was Margaret. He's Justice of Peace. And his paper never went through because Jefferson's no, Madison never let the paper go through because of Jefferson's orders.
Uh-huh.
And Marbury took Madison to like court with Marshall as the chief justice. And then that's when Marshall found out that the writ amendment didn't make sense pretty much.
Good. So what did he decide?
And so, he said like, even though he was on his side, he couldn't do it because of Constitution. What did he decide?
Decided that it was unconstitutional.
Did he get his job?
Makes
So-
sense, makes sense.
That is essentially how they got judicial review, because since they said this was unconstitutional, now the Supreme Court could be like, oop, you can't do that, that's unconstitutional. Oop, you can't do that, it's unconstitutional. This case started all of that. They didn't use it for like another 50 years, but it was still there. Yes? Alright. Hope it's a yes. Alright, so what does limit the